when we talk about the Kodály concept in terms of preparing instrumentalists, we're really focusing on the word developing musicianship, because being a performer is just one aspect of being a musician. What we really want to do is develop all of these multi-dimensions of musicianship so you can bring all of those abilities to performing your pieces of repertoire. So what are these multiple dimensions of musicianship? Well, the first one is performance. The second one is a knowledge of repertoire. The third one is critical thinking. The fourth one is improvisation composition. And the fifth one is listening and understanding and the history and the background of the repertoire you're studying. So I'm going to go back and look at each of these aspects of musicianship again, and let's talk about them briefly. So in the Kodály concept, performance is really, really important. But of course, Kodály stressed the importance of the ability to sing with your voice and also to play in an instrument. Now, singing is critical here because singing develops the ability to hear the music in your inner ear. And for a performer, what you want to be able to do is decide how to perform the piece, not just looking at the score, but how you hear it in your inner ear, and that directs your performance. So many pianists and so many instrumentalists, they learn how to perform the technical aspects of the fingers, and it's almost like the musicianship comes later on. Whereas in the Kodály concept, we want to develop the ability to sing, look at the repertoire you're performing, sing this repertoire either out loud or with your inner ear, so that you've got a greater sense of what the piece should sound like and how it should be performed. The second part of the Kodály concept is about repertoire. Now, by the way, one of the things I'm doing in my research is defining the idea of musicians being global musicians. And what I mean by that is the ability to perform all different types of music. And what I'm working with you and when I'm working with students in China, I think it's really important when we think of global to think in terms of folk music and classical music or art music together. So, by the way, when we talk about developing singing and performance, you'll notice in our lessons that we always sing folk music, because folk music is wonderful material for understanding the basics of what you're going to be performing in your repertoire. And I talk about that a little bit later. So in terms of repertoire, you'll notice in our lessons together, we focus on folk songs, and we also try and find folk songs that in some way help us understand classical music, and we'll demonstrate that a little bit later. The next part about being a global musician is to critically understand the repertoire. And what I mean by that is, so you look at the repertoire, you actually hear the repertoire, and you hear it from what I call sound music theory. In other words, by listening to it, you can determine the structure of the piece, you can identify rhythmic motifs, you can identify melodic motifs, not necessarily with solfege or rhythm syllables, but your ear can identify these important characteristics, because some music, of course, we don't analyze with rhythm or solfege syllables. We try and get an overall understanding of that repertoire by ear. And then, of course, you'll notice that we also analyze that repertoire using what's called symbol music theory. And that's where in our classes, you notice we use things like rhythm syllables. We use things like counting with numbers. We use solfege syllables, and we also use singing with letter names, and that's important. Once you sing and perform and analyze repertoire, especially when we begin in this class with you, Nanga, we work with folk music. And part of what we try and do here is we're trying to get you to improvise in the style of certain folk songs, because improvisation is really, really important, and composition is really important for students. So here at this point in time in your musical education, we're focusing on improvisation and folk music. But of course, later on, we'll be focusing on improvisation, composition with every style of music, like Renaissance, classical, Baroque, and all of that. Although I must say, some of the improvisation that you're now doing you'll find that it prepares you not just for Renaissance music, but it's also going to prepare you for studying Baroque music. And then the last thing we do, of course, is, and you do this also in your classes, is understanding the biographical and historical history of music. So, but it's not just based on dry musical knowledge. You will understand all of these styles because you've already performed this repertoire in your musicianship class. So that's basically what we think of in terms of the Kodály concept. Now that's very brief and it's very short, and I'm sure there's lots of questions, and I'd be delighted to answer questions. So what I'd like to do next is let's go through some of the latest solfege lessons we've had, and let's do a couple of examples of what we're currently working on. Thank you. Great. Nanga, could I ask you to sing for me a Chinese folk song? And this is your tonic note of the piece of music. Here you go. And just on Lu.
Okay. Lu, 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 lu. Lu, 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 lu. Lu, 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 lu. Lu, 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 lu.
Great. Can I ask you to sing for me the scale that's based on with hand signs, and that's your note? Ooh, here you go.
Do, re, mi, sol, la, sol, mi, re, do.
Great. And can I ask, I'm going to show you the hand signs of folk song we've done here, and I want you to wait, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. So one of the phrases goes like this. Do you recognize it?
Yes.
Great. And the folk song that you're thinking about, what's the form of the folk song?
Would be A, B, C, and C variant.
C variant. And can I ask you to sing the A and the B with solfege and hand signs, and then the C and the C variant, solfege and conducting?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do, 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 mi, do, 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 mi, do, do, mi, so, so. La, so, mi, do, la, so, mi, do, mi, re, do. Do, mi, so, la, mi, re, do, re. Do, mi, sol, la, mi, re, do.
Good. So we've been exploring some of the modes that are appearing in 20th century composers. Could I ask you to sing Rocky Mountain first of all and turn it into a major folk song?
Do, 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 mi, do, 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 mi, fa, so. La, so, mi, do, mi, fa, re, do.
Great, and I know there's more. So can I ask you now to take some of the interesting 20th century modes and maybe sing that in another mode that we find in the music of, say, Bartók? Maybe the acoustic scale, okay. If you add in a D and a ta, maybe the acoustic scale. Okay, great. Here you go.
I can try. Lu, do, 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 mi, do, 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 mi, do, ta, do, mi, so. La, so, mi, do, mi, fi, do. Do, mi, so, la, mi, fi, re. Do, mi, so, la, mi, do, ta, do.
Good. Okay, can I ask you to take the major Rocky Mountain, and can I ask you to sing it like in the acoustic scale? This is a scale we find in the music of Bartók. And can I ask you to sing it, first of all, just with solfege and maybe conducting?
Okay. Lu, Do, 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 mi, do, 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 mi, do, do, mi, fi, so. La, so, mi, do, la, so, mi, do, mi, fi, fi, do. Do, mi, so, la, mi, re, do, re. Do, mi, so, la, mi, re, ta, do.
Great. Could you go back and could you sing? And your first note is S, 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 G. Yeah.
S, 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 G, S, 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 G, S, S, G, best, best. C, best, G, S, C, best, G, S, G, G, A, best. S, G, best, C, G, G, F, S, F. S, G, best, C, G, G, F, dash, S.
So I'm going to give you a theme, something you've heard before, and it's going to go with ya da dee da 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 da. Good. Can I ask you to take that theme and can I ask you to create for me a real answer? And of course, when you move into that real answer, that's going to be A5. And then when you do create an A5 variant for me, which means you're going to modulate back from that G sharp back into C sharp again.
Okay.
Okay, and you're starting in C sharp. Here you go. Thank you.
La, ti, do, re, do, ti, la, la. La, ti, do, re, do, ti, la, la. Mi, fi, so, la, so, fi, mi, re. La, ti, do, re, do, ti, la, la.
And I believe you have that same kind of structure in the C sharp fugue. And I wonder if you could sing and play some of that so we could hear that structure in the fugue.
Mm-hmm. La, si, do, ti. La, si, do, ti. La, si, do, ti. La, si, do, ti.
Great, wonderful, good. So can I ask you to sing back in letter names for me, the following, just from the letter names?
Sis, dis, e, fis, e, dis, sis. Sis, dis, e, f, e, d, c. F, bes, C, F.
Great, you're now in F major. Can I ask you to go to the Bach chorale, the Christus? And could I ask you maybe to just sing one part and play the other part? Play it a little slowly and very musically. Good.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you going to sing?
I'm going to sing the alto part.
Okay, great.
So, do, re, do, do, ti, do, re, ti, do, do, ti, do, ti, do.
Beautiful. Can I ask you to just sing some of the chords and analyze some of the chords for us?
Yep. Do, mi, do, chord 1. Do, mi, do, chord 1. Ti, re, ti, chord 5, 6. Ta, do, mi, do, ta, chord 5, 4, 2, 4. La, do, fa, do, la, chord 4, 6. So, ti, so, chord 5. Do, mi, do, chord 1.
Great. And can I ask you to go to your prelude and look at and analyze the chords and some of the just the beginning, so we can hear, especially we're going to hear the inversions of the 7th chords.
Okay. Do, mi, do, chord 1. Do, re, fa, re, do, chord 2, 4, 2. Ti, re, fa, re, ti, chord 5, 6, 5. Do, mi, do, chord 1. Do, mi, do, chord 6, 6. Do, re, la, re, do, chord 5, 4, 2, 5. Ti, re, ti, chord 5, 6. Ti, do, mi, do, ti, chord 1, 4, 2.
Great. And can I ask you, could you just play the opening again so we can hear the melody, and maybe if you sing some of the notes that are going to resolve like a 7th, some of the important notes, but just play it as is.
Okay. Do, ti, fa,
Beautiful. That's great. That's great. Good. And then just sort of some clef work and singing and playing. Could I ask you to go to the Brahms canon?
Yes.
And can you sing one part and play the other 2 parts in canon for us?
Okay.
Thank you. Great.